because before I left, I re-signed them for another 5 years, and I went, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Oh,
It's
no, I
like,
feel that. Oh.
so yeah. When you talk about heartbreak, like I had already calculated the commission. Welcome back, everybody, to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer, and today we have what I would say is a rep that I wanted to talk to ever since I started following her on LinkedIn. This is Nicole Pennington. Nicole, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved your podcast and
Oh,
just
thank
really
you.
enjoyed.
Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned, because I mean, obviously, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on social media, and the podcast has been doing it's been doing okay. So all 37 of my subscribers are listening right now, hopefully. Uh, but essentially, the reason I started is because I have a passion for sales. I have a passion for what I do, and I always love to look at LinkedIn, look at social media, and then see somebody that shares that same passion that seems like they're having shit like just as much fun as I am, and that person just happens to be you. So, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Like, how did you get into sales? Why join this industry?
Well, I actually grew up. My family owns Copeland's, which is Texas' oldest scuba dive shop in South Texas, as of 68 years. So I grew up kind of in the retail sales of sales. So I learned a lot about buying, merchandising, marketing yourself from, I mean, as soon as I could walk until I went to college. And then I worked in a lot of different areas. I actually thought I was going into education, which is completely opposite of where I ended up, which is totally great. But I love sales. I didn't realize until I actually got the job at UniFirst. I hadn't been an outside sales role. I had actually been a manager at Sprint, and they, Byron actually had been in Sprint as well, who is my regional sales manager. And so he took a little faith and took me on and just really kind of, I guess, carefully handled the situation and taught me how to sell, how to market myself, how to market our company at UniFirst, which UniFirst genuinely has one of the best sales funnels, teaching, how marketing. I really have enjoyed my family, my UniFirst family. So that's kind of how it started. And then I realized, in a way, I needed to market myself for UniFirst. Even though UniFirst is within itself, I realized for my own self and where my territory was, I needed to start marketing myself. So I started doing that, and I saw a huge change in my sales, my percentage of sales, my closes, my relationship with others, and it just took off from there.
Yeah, so that's actually something that I wanted to get into a little bit more with you, because typically when I see people like Allison Abbott or like Chelsea Dupree, or somebody that is super active on LinkedIn like yourself, one of the questions I always come up with is where does your creativity come from? Because a lot of times what I've noticed is on LinkedIn, if you're not genuine and you're not posting something that you truly have a passion for, people see right through it. And typically the views on those posts are going to go way down. Not that that's super important to get like view, like a view or a like or a comment or whatever. Although that being said, if you're listening to this podcast and you'd like to like and subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so now. So sorry, super shameless plug. But one of my questions is, where do you get your creativity from?
Honestly, from little, I've always been a creative person. I always had a great imagination. And I will say that UniFirst has such a great brand. I genuinely believe, I feel like you have to believe in your product. If you do not believe in your product, you should not be in that company because you're not going to sell it. So I've had other offers from other companies, that even competitors, and I wouldn't ever take them because genuinely I can see the difference. So I love UniFirst. I love what they represent. I love our service team is phenomenal and they back us. And so for me, I know when I go out and say something, they're going to back me. So it allows me to have that freedom, that flexibility to genuinely know what I'm saying is going to happen. I'm not going to give some false idea of something that's not going to happen. So I'm very thankful for that. But I definitely believe I love creativity. I probably could have gone into marketing because I love it. I love it. I love all of it. I love decorating. I love ideas. I love being creative. I love even throwing myself out there. And if it's going to fail, hey, at least I went down swinging. I mean, so that's kind of genuinely how I have grown up, how I believe, and I want to try everything.
Absolutely. So one thing I've heard, I forget what book this is from, but Joe Rogan actually repeated this on one of his podcasts recently. That's why it's stuck in my head. He said, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So like looking at your background, is that your home office or is that like, are you at your like actual branch right now?
No, I'm actually at my house.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I just actually moved 3 weeks ago to my territory because love my territory. It's it's definitely small right now, but I feel like the industry is growing. That's why we have Still Dynamics that just came in and different companies that are coming. But before it was pretty small, like class sizes in a classroom were about 8 kids a class. So it was a very small,
wow.
Yeah. So it just gives you an idea of what I'm dealing with, but they truly love their own, like, Portland, their people and who and if you represent that, they're gonna appreciate you and respect you. And so for me, I love UniFirst and I was buying all in. So I would go all in. So this is my home house, my home office. I love it. I function better. UniFirst knows that, so they very much support me. So I have like all the garments I need, so I can pull my trifle size kits within minutes, which helps because my own managers will understand, like, I'm one of those people, I want it done today. So if you're going to buy from me, I want to bring in that trifle size today, which UniFirst can understand that might be hard. So they've allowed me a lot of flexibility. I'm very thankful for that. So they've given me a lot of garments that I can store here. And so I just have tubs, have them marked, and then I can grab them and go. So it's been really helpful and for my, potential customers and customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I wanted to comment on that because like you're talking about selling with passion, you sell something that you love. I mean, obviously you care very, very much about your process, your service because you literally have it in your house. I mean, you have a whiteboard up there. I'm sure that's full of different accounts that you're probably working. I'm sure that the color codes probably mean something different, right? Like whether it's like different process in the sales cycle or whatever it is, which we won't get too much into because I know that like obviously this is a public podcast. I don't want to get into like the internal sales process and how all that works, just in case my competitors are listening. Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of people, when they think about the sales industry as a whole, like it's funny. My wife told me, she said, when you tell people what you do, just tell them you're in sales. Like, don't say anything else because she knows that like I'm the kind of person that will talk to a complete stranger in the grocery store and be like, yeah, I sell toilet paper, paper towel, soap, sanitizer. In fact, we just started manufacturing our own stuff. And I'll just start going into my process. And then you'll see people in the grocery store look at me and just go like that. I don't want to talk. In fact, I was at my niece's wedding. There was a guy who came over and he sat down next to me. He's wearing a nice suit. So I asked him, what do you do? He's like, it's like, oh, I'm in sales. And I was like, oh, you're in sales? Let's talk. And so we started talking. He gets up to get a drink, never came back. So, so that's just kind of one of those things. So I've learned over time that I might have to introduce myself in a different way. And so how I do that is I tell people, I'm a fashion consultant for blue collar executives. And then they get really interested.
No, that is so creative. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So sorry, I went off on a total tangent. And for those of you that have never seen my podcast, just keep in mind, it's going to happen again. But as far as sales go, my original question was, when people think about sales, they think about this super tough world, this sales gene that you have to survive, this cutthroat industry. What has your perspective been on sales? Uh-oh. I think we have a technical difficulty.
Hold on, I lost you for a second. Hang on.
Oh, okay. I can hear you. Oh, there we go.
There,
I see you. Yep.
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so I was just asking from people's perception of sales, being a cutthroat industry or like having to be born with that sales gene to survive. Have you found that to be the case? I mean, what's your perspective on sales?
I can absolutely see that, but at the same hand, people want you to be genuine. So that's why I stand for UniFirst and what they stand like. All of our garments, we stand behind. We represent them. I will be honest. I'll be like, tell a customer, if you're going to get this garment, we can only get it at this time. Because I'd rather be honest and then say, okay, well, that's not going to work. Because I feel like that's genuine, building that rapport, building that relationship. So honesty is the best policy. It sounds corny, but totally believe it. So, but I also am super competitive. So that helps in a lot of facets. I work hard. I'm a mom of 3 kiddos and they are my why. So I feel like you have to have that in sales. You have to have that solid why to go. I listen to tons of podcasts and I didn't realize that was my why until I started kind of trying to dissect why I was so passionate. And even I can drive my sales manager a little crazy because I might be a little crazy sometimes with wanting things done on time and exactly like, that huge competitiveness. So it helps. It genuinely does. But again, you have to want it. And I feel like with your not even competitors, but your customers, they see it. So if they see that I'm willing to go out of my way, I will go out of my way. One of my biggest accounts was Steel Dynamics, and they knew because I would literally every week go and pick up mats that were filthy from these guys, thousands of guys walking in, and I would roll them up in my heels, and the girls couldn't believe it. And I would roll them up, throw them in my car, take them back, make sure they were washed, and bring them out the next day. But it was to prove what we were, what UniFirst was, and what I stood for, that I wasn't going to sell them something I didn't believe in. And I feel like they saw that because that was before we even sold them. That was just a trial period. We were very much up against our competitor who most likely was going to win since they were a national provider. So not me, I was my whole service team, but I was like, we're going to prove our service. If that's me bringing it in heels and, nice clothing, we're going to get your caliche mats and take them and clean them and bring them back. I feel like that's super important. And so I definitely want to represent what I sell, from little things to big things. I don't feel like I'm above anything. I will pretty much, from changing toilet paper to putting urinal mats, anything, I will do it. So yeah. I feel like that's important,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the same mindset I have. And one thing I try to tell customers, especially when they bring up the objection, when they say, well, we have one of your competitors. What is it that separates you? You still have all the same issues, shortages, repairs, blah, 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 whatever it is. And what I've learned to say to customers is, listen, when you were originally sold this program, the problem is you were sold a unicorn, right? Which doesn't exist. So for me, how I come in is I'm not trying to sell you a unicorn. I'm trying to sell you a thoroughbred stallion that maybe one day it wins a Triple Crown race. That's what we're looking to do. But eventually there's going to be a service issue because we're all people. We all make mistakes. The way that we service the customers, the way that we take care of those issues, that's truly what matters. And so when you say honesty is the best policy, to me, it makes a lot of sense. And it really resonates with me too. And that's one of the things is I feel like the perception of salespeople is always you get this dishonest taste from people. And to me, I'm like, on the contrary, I think in order to sell, especially in this day and age, when people have so much access to the internet, social media, Yelp reviews, Google reviews, all this other stuff, it's impossible to sell and be dishonest and actually be successful, right? Like at least I haven't been a salesperson that's been dishonest within the last 10 or 15 years, because it's just, you can't do it. There's just too much visibility. So that being said, I mean, obviously sales presents its own challenges, right? What are some of your biggest challenges in sales? I mean, like, have you overcome those since you first started in the industry? And what are some of the challenges that you have selling, like, within a pandemic, let's say?
Absolutely. Well, I'll say my first on that question, I definitely put COVID, which of course is the standard. But you have to be creative. And I think that's, again, what ignited my social media hit. Because I was like, I knew I had to get my face out there. I had, even if it was silly, if it was dumb, if it was doing I'd never been on TikTok in my life, and I did a TikTok safety video. I wanted to get myself.
That was awesome, by the way. I love that. Oh, that was great.
That's great. That's good. Because I definitely, our product is really top notch. And so I wanted people to see that. I wanted to see the difference. And I also have seen it done really bad, and not even by other competitors, just by people trying to, Band-Aid their safety standard. And I just, for me, I wanted to really show there is a difference, and we want to make sure for the company, for their reputation, that we back that. So that, in a funny way, I was trying to get attention there. But social media has been really helpful. I also think continuing to back what we say. So I follow up with emails. I call. I will of course wear the mask and all that to meet competitors, or customers with competitors and everything. We've gone up against both, and definitely tried everything that I possibly can to show them what we are and what we represent as UniFirst. And then the other thing I will say, my one biggest thing is I'm super passionate, and in a way it can be emotional. So I can feel like, honestly, but when I lose a big account that I've been working, I've actually recently lost one. It was genuinely like a heartbreak. It was, golly, it hit me to the bone, and I reflect on myself, and that I feel like is the best, because that next day, even my GM said, Nicole, you need to just relax. And I was like, no, because it showed me places that I felt like I had lost, and places that I needed deficits that I needed to fill. So even my biggest wins, I feel like the biggest losses have really, honestly, inspired me, showed me, and given me that passion to go, it's almost, there's a podcast too, and I even wrote it down because I wanted to remember, but it was from, oh gosh, I can't think of it. Hold on. I have it. I'll think of it. But and they literally were talking about, if you have something that you believe in, it's like the curing cancer. You want to go out there and tell everybody. And for me, I see the difference in service that UniFirst provides. So in that facet, I want them to go I want you to understand, I might not win you right now, but in 4 years, I promise you're going to call me. So, and that's that whole backing, that I want to make sure that they understand, just because I lost you today does not mean that I'm not here for you, and that I'm not willing to help you and help that provider, because it's a customer. It's a company's job. They signed this agreement. I want to make sure that they're going to back what they say. So yeah. I definitely actually helped recently a couple of customers that did not choose me, which was super hard. But at the same time, I helped them to make sure that they were getting what they were told that they were going to receive. And in that, I feel like I've built a good relationship with some of those hard hits.
Yeah, I actually had a really sobering moment. This is about 3-4 years ago now. I was driving home, and I just made contact with the legendary Joey Hall, who's a amazing individual. By the way, I would have him on the podcast, but he told me I can't have him on the podcast until I go to Aruba and I do it with him live. So challenge accepted, Joey. You're going to be my guest in Aruba, and trust me, I'm doing everything I can to get there. So there was a really big account that I was working. It was an automotive dealership in Sacramento, California, which is where I'm from. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, man, I got this in the bag. They have a ton of pain with their incumbent. I've done a cost analysis. I stayed up till 2:00 in the morning doing a cost analysis for all 6 of their locations. He goes, okay, well, what else have you done? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, buddy, if you haven't done more than that, you're not going to win their business. because like you haven't done enough. And it was a very sobering thing because I'm like, no way, dude, this is a $5,000 account. I got this in the bag. I'm gonna go. I think at the time it was Cabo or whatever was the President's Club location. And the next day we had a sales manager start who actually came over from one of our competitors, and he was asking me about my pipeline. And so I told him I put this account up there front and center. He goes, yeah, you're not going to win that. And I said, why? He goes, because before I left, I re-signed them for another 5 years. And I went, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh,
It's
no,
like,
I feel that.
so yeah, when you talk about heartbreak, like I had already calculated the commission and what the bonus was going to be. And I was thinking about buying a new car for my wife, and it was just going to be amazing. And it was just like, it just flattened my whole dreams. But that's happened to me a lot. In fact, I just had a conversation with one of our newer reps who also had that same thing happen to her. And I said to her, well, listen, if you're going to 6 or 7 big accounts every single fiscal year, and you're at least in the door in the game, all you need is one. That's it.
Yep.
You just need one of those deals to close, because everything else that you sold that year, that thing closes, all of a sudden you got a diamond ring on your finger, right? So
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the ebb and flow of sales though, right? But so like what you're saying is that you take it personally. That's one of your challenges, one of your struggles.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. Because I also see the struggle in our area. Our competitors are at the Lester, like they just are. You can hear it from everybody, and it's not. I understand there are times in areas in the United States that they could be really equivalent or even sometimes better. Our area is not that. So for us to get it, I definitely take it personal because I know what they're then gonna. So it's hard because I build that rapport, build that relationship. I love Bill Wise. Like, okay, you had him on a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And he's phenomenal. And that same like South Texas rapport, that's what we have. Like we have that. We're gonna ask about their family, about what they're doing, what vacation they went on. That's what we do. It's very different than how our sales funnel and how we are taught is phenomenal, but it's still different down here than in Boston. So we aren't supposed to be like cutthroat. Hey, let me talk to the KI. It's how are you doing? What's going on? And then they push you through. So it's very important to build those relationships. So for me, it's very personal. I build that relationship and continue to push it through. And then all of a sudden we'll get that sign, which is so pivotal and important of course, in our industry. So yeah. I just really want them to get the best, whether it's with us or whoever is competing, but I want to make sure that they're getting that is, I guess, my.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, right? Like, and I think part of it is that, like, at least in my case, I get so invested into not just the competitiveness, but knowing that my sales process is better than my competition, and knowing that I'm a better salesperson than the people I'm going up against. And it's funny because like, I did a presentation about 4 years ago at this big HVAC company, and it was perfect. So much pain. We ended up losing the deal because the executive, like national sales guy, had to fly in to save the account, and he did. He won, right? So like I was like, dang it! Like I lost another one. And my sales manager at the time said, "Dude, do you realize what they had to do to keep that account?
Yes,
they had to fly that dude in from corporate to wine and dine these guys because they were leaving 100%. They were going to leave if that guy didn't do that. So absolutely. I took solace in that, but I still keep in touch with that account, even though I transferred out of Sacramento. But you also hit on something different. And that was that in your territory, it's different than like how it is in Boston. Like I've heard both ways. Like I've heard sales trainers say that's the biggest excuse we've heard because it's different here. It's not the same there. Right. And I think as much as sales trainers want to believe that everything is the same, I think there's a different culture that goes into it because like in Sacramento, no one cared about their contracts. Nobody. I mean, if they were ready to leave, they would tell me straight up, I don't care if they come in and drop $20,000 on my table. I'm leaving. right? I was like, okay. But then you come out to East Idaho, and people not only don't really believe you when you say that they're in contract because they've been with the same vendor for 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
but then even when they have pain to document issue after issue, they don't do it because they don't want to leave. Like, it's so crazy the different cultures that go into it. So like, sales process has to change, accordingly. But that's just my 2 cents on it. So
Well, no, it's interesting because what you just said is exactly what it is in South Texas. Like, they're loyal to their contract. We've even offered to buy out contracts or pay the minimum and then sign somebody, and they're getting horrible service. Like, I can't even explain. Like, it would, if I told you some of the stories, you would not believe me service. Okay. So, and it's prevalent in this area. So I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, well, we'll pay the minimum, whatever it is, and then go ahead and sign with me, and we will absolutely give you better service, pay their minimum until the contract's out, even 2 years out, and we'll pay that. And they won't sign until the end of the contract because they're very loyal to that. And I'm like, you're dealing with somebody that isn't loyal to you, but, and so we just have to really foster and care for that relationship and also honor their belief. And again, right. Customer service, and we try to show and make sure that they understand their, responsibility in that. But it can be, I get it. It can be it's very different from people see.
Yeah. Well, it's also a really scary thing too, because I kind of went through that from the opposite side, because when we purchased our house in East Idaho, it came with like a security system. I guess there was a service attached to it, right? So the owner of the house, his son actually used to own the business that like oversaw the security system. And so he had asked us if we wanted to continue. I was like, well, how much is it? Like, is it per month? He's like, oh, it's like $40. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll pay the $40 or whatever. Well, fast forward 3 months, we didn't get an invoice, didn't get a bill. And all of a sudden we got this huge bill for like three late payments. And I'm like, well, hold on. Mm-hmm. So I went back and I actually like talked to him, and he was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's just how things are. I went, okay, well, we're just going to cancel the service and we're just going to walk away. And he goes, you're going to have to pay a $600 buyout for all the equipment because there's liquidated damages and stuff. And I was like, dude, do you know who you're talking to right now? Like, I do this for a living. I was like I told him, listen, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to send me a copy of your agreement. I want you to send me the last 3 months of invoicing all printed out so that I can do a full audit and actually see if I signed anything, because I've signed a lot of stuff in the past like 3 months, having to buy a house and whatnot. I could have signed it. And if that's the case, if I'm stuck, not a problem. I will honor that. So sure enough, no copy of the agreement, no invoicing. I had to take all the stuff off myself and then send it to him via like UPS, right? But I was just but even with the knowledge that I have, and one thing to keep in mind too, folks, is if you're listening, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, we don't give legal advice to customers. It may sound that way, but we don't do it. Even though I dress like one, I may sound like one from time to time. I'm not one, so take that with a grain of salt. We do not provide legal advice. That's our legal disclaimer for this podcast. But it was interesting because even though I knew I was in the right, it was still scary to think that this guy might take me to small claims. I might have to actually go and hire a lawyer and talk to him and see if I had any, because it's Idaho. Might be a different law than what Sacramento is. Who knows? But luckily nothing ever came of it. I was able to just walk away and just leave. But it gave me some real perspective into, oh, okay, that's kind of what these customers are feeling. So I can't imagine them having 3 more years left on an agreement and then having we're going to charge you liquidated damages or whatever. It's just for sure. So, but jumping back to your visibility on LinkedIn, like you mentioned, that's kind of helped you with your career, right?
Well, it has helped in certain aspects. It's definitely helped UniFirst. It has helped in a lot other regions in my area, or other companies, I guess, UniFirst companies, of course, but locations in my area have definitely gotten some good leads. Ashley signs multiple accounts because of it. I have not as much, but that's only because I feel like my area is kind of a tight-knit area. So again, I'm still building that rapport. I'm brand new to sales. I'm only a year in. So I understand that that's part of it. And I definitely want people to know that I stand behind what I say. So I'm thankful, so thankful that it has brought multiple accounts, and I can send them to Byron. He'll send them to the location they need to be at. And that's been awesome. So
Wow,
we're
that's
very
great.
grateful for that. It has been really, really good. And my point is, like, I do really represent UniFirst. I love them. I think they're a great company. I think that they genuinely back what they do. And of course we make mistakes. Of course we have deficits moments, but we go above and beyond to correct them. And especially our location, and I feel like majority of locations in our area, like anywhere, just like you talking about your location, I feel like we genuinely push that. And I'm thankful for that. So again, I love social media in certain aspects, but kind of growing that and figuring it out. And again, I'm brand new, so I'm definitely happy to figure out what's real, what's not. When people message you, I have to make sure that it's, in the direction we want to go. And so I'm kind of just navigating that right now.
Yeah, I always call it the when like somebody messages you and they say hey, but there's two Y's, so there's something like nefarious going on. Like, it's funny. I'll come home and be like, yeah, I got this weird message on LinkedIn, and my wife's like, was it two Y's? I'm like, yes, there were two Y's in the hay. It was not good. It's not a good thing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's interesting. The whole social media, because like it's funny. Like, I've told this story on the podcast before, but I'll tell it again because I'm sure no one listens. But I was at corporate just after I transferred up to Pocatello from Sacramento, and I met a sales manager from Denver named Katie, who, by the way, Katie is going to be on my podcast next week, so make sure you guys tune in. I'll make sure to put. She's amazing. She's awesome. She's super funny, by the way. But she walked up to me and she goes, "You're the LinkedIn guy," and I went, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, like your post about leaving Sacramento and the before and after shot of your desk." I was like, holy crap, how did you see that? And she goes, everybody saw that. I was like, no, not everybody. And she told me that she felt like there wasn't a single person in the company at that time that didn't know who I was because of that. And I'm like, no, wait. So I go back on LinkedIn, I look at the like actual views. I'd never paid any attention to that. There was 11,000 views on that one post. And I'm like,
yes.
Huh? Like, what? Why do people care so much? And so that kind of started this thing where I just kept posting. So to me, the benefit has been not so much signing customers, because I think a lot of the customers out here, they don't really have LinkedIn. They're not super active on that platform. But what it's done for my career is put me in touch with people like you, right? Or like really put in touch with Bill Wise, who honestly I couldn't stop saying his name on the podcast, so eventually he had to come on. Or people like Sam Smith in Los Angeles, like people like that I've gotten in contact with and have made this platform that I wouldn't normally have ever talked to these people unless it was like a corporate event or unless I made President's Club or something, right? So it's just been amazing. But on top of that too, like I've had recruiter after recruiter reach out to me and be like, hey, we have this opportunity. Hey, we have this opportunity. Hey, we're talking about this. And I'm just like, no, like, no, go away. So anyways, but that's super awesome that you've actually gotten customers to sign from that. I mean, that's amazing.
It's yeah, at first I was really shocked by it. I was like, and I thought that they were just messing around or whatever. And one of them, actually in our location, the sales rep couldn't meet with them. So I said, you know what? For an easy handoff, I'll go to that meeting. It's more experience. It's more. I'm still trying to learn. A year in, during COVID, which was, I didn't get any experience. I felt like. So I was like, I want to go talk to this customer, see what they like. They like our, they like my post. I want to find out. And they ended up signing that day. And I was like, this is phenomenal. So from that, it went on. And then we ended up signing a 45 employee company, which is for us a Big 10. So that's always great. So it continued. And so for me, it gave me that inspiration. And just like you saying, your post got a ton. I couldn't believe I did my first Still Dynamics post and I got 20,000 views. And I was like, I sent it to my GM and my sales manager. And I was like, and they know I'm not one to like try to like oh, dope or whatever. But I was like, yo, this is crazy. And they couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe it. And I even actually showed my kids, and they thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, your kids are like, oh, mommy's famous now.
They did for a second. They're like, Mom, you went viral. I was like, that felt really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny because like I always post these podcasts on like YouTube and stuff, and so my kids think that I'm famous because we have the Roku at home, the big like screen or whatever, and you can access YouTube on it. So like I'll turn on one of my podcasts, and my daughter will be like, "Dad, you're on TV." But I'm not gonna correct you. So Daddy's famous. What can I say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's I mean 20,000 views. Which post was that? Do you remember what it was?
That was it was actually my very first post. We went for our facility. Okay, so Still Dynamics, we signed them for facility services first, and then they went into, and so we broke it down because they have actually 8 departments. So it was a huge account. But so that post was, I went and personally installed 20 hand sanitizer stands, and I put them together myself, not ever putting together one, and before. So it was a hot mess. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and it ended up being a 2-day thing. It was crazy, but I posted that just about like the experience and how thankful I was for the opportunity, and I couldn't believe it blew up. It was really cool. It was a very cool experience. So
yeah, that's what I find. Like, I mean, when you post things like you're installing something or you're just grinding, because everybody knows, like at least in the industry, everybody knows that to put up that many dispensers by yourself, I mean, that's a grind. That's hard to do, right? So I mean, that gets a lot of views. But also, I found when I post personal things like my wife and my kids came out to I work out of a Twig, which is like a small, tiny new branch in Chubbuck, Idaho. And it's funny because my wife and my kids, they came out and we took a picture in front of the Universe truck, and I just like posted, hey, my wife and kids came out to decorate my office or whatever. That got a ton of views. And I'm like, what? Yes. Like, I think it's because my wife's an absolute dime piece and it's just a smoke show. That's probably why people are looking, to be honest. But
but no, that genuine like showing your family there, that's so crucial, I feel like, too, especially, and it represents our company and who you are. And so important.
Yeah, but like, I mean, jumping back to the career visibility too, like I actually got an email, by the way, shout out to Jordan Grossclose, sales manager. Like, I got an email from him just out of the blue, and he was like, hey, I was talking with my branch manager, we were looking at your numbers, just like of people that we know. He's like, dude, you're within stride. And he wrote this like 3-paragraph long like motivational email to me. I'm like, I'm not even your rep, but I loved it. I was like, that is so cool that like you reached out and actually talked to me. So yeah, so Jordan, thanks again. Or where's the camera? Thanks again, Jordan. I appreciate that, dude. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. But I feel like too with social media, at least in your case as well, being so visible, I think what that does is it builds a culture. Because for anybody that's brand new, that's looking at coming onto the company that you and I work for, if they see posts like that or posts like this one, or they see other people that are also posting and that culture is there, it's going to make them want to work for us more and to be a part of that team, right? Yeah, not that culture wasn't there before. I just think it's much more visible now, especially people like Allison Abbott, who posts like 3 times a week and is like a multiple President's Club winner. Yeah, she's awesome.
She motivates. When I see her post, I'm like, oh man, I got to get out there. I've kind of let it down this week. I need to get out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out the episode with Allison Abbott, please feel free to look at my channel, scroll through. You'll see an episode with Allison on there. You'll hear me stutter all over myself because I can hear myself in my headphones and it's messing me up. So it's not the best. I'll probably have to redo it at some point. But yeah, that's great. So what part of Texas are you in again?
So Corpus Christi, South Texas, South Texas.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you just
in our location, small location too, that's off of us. So Victoria. So we're 815, but we also, we're 811, and then 815 is our branch. So it's off off of us in Victoria. Both locations are great, so keep, pushing those. But yeah, we're definitely.
Yeah. So with Texas, I mean, have you guys had to do much of like the virtual meetings, or do you guys go out there in person and actually talk to people?
Well, in the beginning, we were really virtual. And honestly, I would say the first like 4 months of my career in sales was researching database. I mean, it was very little contact. I got a lot of, there were moments that I thought Universe would never keep me because it was shut down after shut down after shut down. If I called, they thought I was disrespectful. And I understood we were all in a difficult time, and it's something we'd never seen. So I tried to respect that. I would ask about how they're doing. And instead, I would not even bring up Universe at first. Even in the first conversation, I just like, hey, I just want to check how you're doing. And I would mention Universe, but lightly. And I just like, we really just, as a company, wanted to reach out to you, make sure you're doing okay. Is there anything we could do? Can we bring y'all anything? And it really helped me build rapport with customers that didn't even know. I had requests from water to toilet paper to that I would bring them that weren't even Universe products because I just wanted to build that rapport. So that kind of was like the first 4 to almost 6 months of my starting with Universe. And then after that, we did a lot of, I would offer virtual meetings, but they'd be like, who are you? What are you doing? You're not worth my time at the time. And so I would just be like, hey, I just want to check on you, completely understand. And then after that, we started doing some virtual meetings, but then Texas opened up and thankfully, and we could just go in now, especially my territories, they're rural. So they think you're, crazy if you're wearing a mask. I'm like, hey, that's funny. Not that I disrespect, I love anything, however you feel, but for me, it was nice. It was nice to be able to be welcome, nice to see each other's faces. And I would always bring Purell. I'm a big, even my company makes fun, my location makes fun of me because I always bring candy and Purell to everybody I go to, or cookies. And so it just was an easy way to come in and go, hey, I just want to bring you this. How are you doing? How is your services? Are you receiving services? If not, we would love to honor that. Like if not, or if you have a customer or a company, can we please, work with you or see how they're treating you? So it was just a good first step kind of. So I definitely used that.
Yeah, that's that's something I think a consensus has been with a lot of sales reps, during this time, is that we've had to all kind of evolve, and we've had to change up our pace a little bit more and be a little bit more empathetic, because and for those of you that may be listening to this that aren't in sales, salespeople live off commission, right? So for us to be sequestered to our home office for like 3 months, or to in my case, it was an unfinished basement for 3 months, making phone calls back and forth over and over and over again, and then to not be able to sell those accounts in the same fashion, the same way, obviously your sales kind of dip, right? And I think our company has done a fantastic job with kind of educating us on how to do that. I just feel like it was a really tough time. Obviously it's a tough time for everybody. There are people that lost their jobs, lost their businesses, what have you. And we felt that as salespeople too, because a lot of our customers, a lot of our connections moved on to other things. Like the restaurant industry took a huge hit. The hospitality industry took a huge hit. My biggest competition, which is like heavily into both those industries, lost people, right? That was heartbreaking to see. Even though they're my competition, it still sucks to see people lose their jobs and to go through that tough time. It was really reminiscent of like 2008, 2009, when the housing bubble burst and everybody went through that nightmare, right? Back then I was teaching martial arts, and all of a sudden overnight the school's gone. So, it was a really tough thing to go through. But you hit on something too that I think a lot of people don't do, and that's you bring something of value to the meeting, right? You bring cookies, you bring something personal, you bring Purell. Now, is that to every single door that you walk into, or is that just to just like your top hitters, like your top appointments those days?
Well, I'll say I'm brand new, pretty sales. So for me, they really couldn't believe it, but I would stay up at night and make like 20 bags the night before. And and it would also, indicate my, so if I didn't hit that number, I knew that for me, I was off. So it would allow me kind of my own just percentage of what I wanted to do. So I would know which stores I was going to go to, and which customers I really wanted to at least have some sort of conversation. If I couldn't, I at least wanted to drop it and go with my card. I always make cute little bags and put a little bow in my card. And so for me, it was really personal. So I just was, if they weren't there, I completely understood. And I would be like, hey, absolutely, I just want to bring you this candy. Please give me this, give this to, and I would tell them the name. I have their name written on it. And so it allowed me to make sure that I was making that number of stops. Majority of the time, it was in between about 15 to 18 stops, even during COVID, only because I wanted them to see my name. I was brand new, didn't know any better. And so I was like, might as well try it. And it definitely kept me accountable. It kept me accountable to my customer. And I'll say, like, there are people that won't sign with me yet, they're coming, but they'll be like, you're the nicest salesperson. We just appreciate you coming to bring us chocolate. Absolutely. And I'll say, well, I don't mind bringing you chocolate as long as you know that when you make that decision, you're going to sign with Nicole at UniFirst. Like, and I say it every time. Fine, I understand. I respect your decision, but when you make that decision, it's coming. You're going to sign with me. And I feel like that allowed them the freedom in their choice, but also let them reassure them, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it gave me comfort. It also, during a time that I wasn't making sales, it showed me, I guess, personally, that I was valuing our company, because I knew for any reason, especially during COVID, if I lost my job, I knew that I valued them what, and so I wanted to go out swinging. And in the end, it really benefited me. I had a lot of customers come to me and go, we had nobody come in during COVID. We had nobody even caring about us. And I was constantly there. If they said something, or they were pregnant, or if they had anything, I was always like following up with emails going like, hey, like, I know that you're 2 weeks out of your pregnancy. Like, I hope you're doing okay. I hope your family, or, just like silly things, but just want to follow up, because COVID changed a lot for a lot of people. And not being able to have full families during that time, or during hospitalization, sickness, it was really, it impacted our whole, of course, America, but just personally, like, our environment and our community. And I just want to make sure that they knew, yes, I represent UniFirst, and I love UniFirst, and I will push it to the end, but I'm also here for you. So right. Yes, if you need toilet paper that isn't UniFirst, I will pick it up and I'll bring it to you. But when you're ready, to sign, call me up. So it was, I wanted to follow up with that.
Right. Well, like, in doing that too, you used a word, you said it was kind of silly, right? To me, I think that's brilliant, just because, like, when you make a personal connection with your customers, or maybe it's just the gatekeepers, we call them, the receptionist or the executive secretary, whatever they are, sometimes that's the person that lets you in the door. Like, and I can tell you, like, I used to work at a financial advisory firm, and we had an executive assistant named Sherry. And if Sherry didn't like you, you were genuinely a bad person, because Sherry loves everyone, right? I mean, she just super sweetheart. So Sherry, if you're listening, I love you. I miss you. But it was funny, because, like, when people would come through the door, if she didn't like that person, she would just tell them that the owner of the business wasn't there, even though he was, right? So when you create that relationship with the gatekeeper or with the receptionist, and you bring them treats, you bring them something, you ask them questions about their kids or about their pets or about something, there's sometimes they can be kind of a protector for you, right? Because if somebody else comes in, like one of your competitors walks in with something and is like, hey, how's it going? I'm so-and-so from this company. And she knows that they're a competitor of yours. And she's like, hey, yeah, you know what? Nicole was just here last week and brought me donuts and already knows my first name. So you can piss off. Like, I love hearing that. Love that. Especially on the next cold call that you go back in, you're like, hey, Sherry, how's it going? Like, hey, is Tom back in his office? Yeah, by the way, the other guy from the other company came in. I told him just to go away. I'm like, that's awesome, right? Like to me, that's absolute brilliance that you do that. But it's interesting too, because you're literally planning your day out the night before based on the traits that you have. That blows my mind. That's so awesome.
I'm a foodie, so I feel like a foodie gets it. So I just like, why wouldn't I want to treat these people? And it allows for me, I guess I was a little bit, when I first got into sales, I was insecure. So it allowed me to bring them something. And then it became such a, like, I guess a signature of who I was, that then they not expected it, but it was just something that came. And so it allowed that door in, and they knew I was coming. They knew I would bring it again for the gatekeeper. Plus I would just bring more. Once I learned the company, I would definitely know who I needed to make sure that I had it for. So of course I would never ever skip over anybody, but I would make sure that I was equipped. But funny thing, really quick, and a funny story. You just brought up the just your story makes me think of Still Dynamics in the sense of I didn't think I was going to win it at all. And even my company, even the people at Universe, my location, would have said we would never win it. But our very first meeting with all the big KIs, they were flown in from New Mexico, which is their main location and all that. They came in and we're sitting there. I had been meeting with the gatekeeper, which is actually the gate guard. Her name's Michelle. She's phenomenal. I love her. And I never knew this, but I would talk to her, bring her stuff, and I would say, hey, I know I'm nobody. I'm Nicole. I'm with Universe, but please give this. And I would give her brochures and magazines. I would come weekly. It was so terrible. Donuts and all kinds of stuff. Well, it was so ironic because we were in the meeting and the head of safety at Still Dynamics, that's his wife. And I had and my sales manager, Bobby, hit me so hard. Like, because in the meeting, we were like, he was like, oh my gosh, in his face. It is one of my moments that I'll never forget, like in sales, because it made me go, you don't know who you're dealing with. You need to respect everyone, value everyone. Just because they're a gatekeeper does not mean that they're a gatekeeper. And I feel like that's the only thing that I could say a little bit that we might want to alter in our sales approach is not valuing that gatekeeper. Because yes, we want to sometimes push through them, but valuing them, showing them respect, and showing them who they are, you never know where you could go. And for me, that was one of my biggest ones. Like, I feel like showing her respect because she deserved it, and she's phenomenal, and she's, oh my gosh, we're great friends now. But at the time, I was 2 months into Universe. Like, I had barely started, never been in outside sales, didn't know what I was doing, and I had my daughter's car seat in the back, and she's like, oh, you have a daughter? So it started our conversation. Like, that's super important. And so I love that story because it showed me I will never, ever, ever, I don't care if you're scrubbing toilets, which I have done in my previous employees' jobs. I feel like it's so important. You gotta value those. Anybody and everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's funny too, like how quickly we jump, because I mean, like, the traditional sales training is you only deal with the person that signs the contract. You don't need to worry about anybody else, just bypass them. Now, one thing too is that one of the biggest things I've learned from going through trainings like that and reading sales books and all those other tactics and whatnot is that there's one absolute in sales, and that's that there's no one absolute way to sell
Yes.
an account, right? Because I was told
Absolutely.
I was told by somebody a long time ago, because Universe, we don't do linen, with the exception of, I believe, one branch in the company, right? But historically, we just don't do that. And it's funny because one of the biggest accounts I ever sold was a casino out here in Pocatello, Idaho, right?
Uh-huh.
And when I came into the meeting, one of the first questions that they asked me was, so why don't you do linen like your competitors do, right? I mean, why should we go with you?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them this question. I said, well, guys, listen, you're in the food and beverage industry, right? And they said, yeah. I said, okay. When was the last time you had a soda from Budweiser? And they go, I don't think I've ever had that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's flip it. When was the last time you got drunk from having a drink of Coca-Cola? And they went,
Yes.
well, never. I said, but you used both companies to bring you literally a liquid that's the same color. It's in the same kind of packaging, but you're okay with that. Why? Well, because one company does this better than anybody else. I said, there you go. That's my whole sales pitch to you. That's what my company does is 4 core services, one of the services. What we don't do is all this. You know why? Because we suck at it. Like
Yeah.
everything else, we're awesome.
Yep.
Right? So anyways, so ended up winning that deal. But that's the thing about giving the sales process is that people would have told me, don't go because they use linen. Well, just because they use linen doesn't mean they won't use us for everything else. It doesn't all have to be on one invoice,
Right.
So anyways.
I really, that's so good. And my territory is so linen based. And actually our UniFirst location is broken up. So we have, I know there's a few of them, but we're one of the very few that have only uniforms and only linens. So
So that's your branch that does that.
My branch is only uniforms. I am not. So in my territories are all hotel and restaurant. That's why it's such a big deal that a few of the accounts have, because it is so dominant. It's definitely a President Club linen division is my territory, 100%. We have Portland. We just have, Ingleside or Pass. They're all hotel and restaurant. That's dominant for us. So it's been eye-opening, but at the same time, I'll do the same thing as you. I'll go in and I'll be like, I can sell you all this, and we will bring that service and we will represent. I can call you in the UniFirst that can give you the linens, but I'm going to sell you on all this first.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely, you work with what you have, and we definitely try to, and more than that, like you said, like we bring the value. Yes, there is a dollar amount, and we want to make sure that they're getting the best for their dollar, but we also bring the value and we bring the service. And that's what I try to genuinely pinpoint.
Yeah. And I feel like with any sales job that I've had, because I've been in sales since I was 13, right? So like whether it was like martial arts, I mean, if you had a kid that like absolutely came in through the door, he would not stand still. He's running around the whole mat. I'm trying to talk to their parents. I was like, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. He comes over to me. I'm like, okay, little Timmy, you ready for your martial arts class? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no. Yes, sir. And he goes, yes, sir. And he stands up straight. His parents immediately go, oh my goodness. Like, why does he listen to Mr. Meyer and not to me? And then I take him in the class. He does awesome. That's the easiest sale in the world, because you're literally providing them with visible value, right? And then you go into the financial advisory industry and it's like a whole different sales process, but you're still looking for the same value, the same kind of trust. Like, and that's why I feel like I fit so well with the company I'm at now, because we stand behind that value. Right? We stand behind what we service. And it's interesting too, because I feel like the route service reps, like I actually did a podcast with them too. It was awesome. But those guys work their butts off. And a lot of times, I mean, like I've heard them say, dude, I'm so sorry I dropped the ball on this. And they're coming up and talking to me about it. I'm like, dude, totally fine. Like I'll help you with this, or like I need their help with something. Like, I mean, there's probably been a couple LinkedIn or like posts you've seen from me where I'm actually taking the route service rep out cold calling with me, or I bring that person to a presentation, because it's so easy for the customer to go, well, tell me about your service. I just go, cool, Matt, take it away. And then he starts saying about it's the best ever.
Yep.
But I mean, those guys are so busy. It's super, super rare to get that to happen. But when it does, it's amazing. I love doing that. So.
Absolutely. No, that's what we have our RSRs are phenomenal, but we have one that I ended up calling in for a sale. So I was like, the KI said, we can't stand how a certain company does their mats. And I was like, well, tell me what they do. And they told me how they did it. And I said, I will make sure, and so we gave them a 2-week free trial of showing them, if you do not like how we service your mats, there's no cost. We're bringing our own mats. We're doing, and it changed it. And they signed because we were willing to, but that's because of our service team. And that's why I actually wrote on it, because their names down, because I wanted to make sure, like, they're phenomenal. Like our service team, just like yours, go above and beyond. And they bust their butt. They work so hard. That's why I'm always, you'll see on my posts, I'm always like taking out garments, doing a really quick sprint trips. I'm like, I'm willing to do whatever they need, because they back me every time, and I cannot thank them enough, because what makes our company. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, those guys are awesome, and they have such a tough job too. I mean,
They
like it's super hard. I mean, just like a physical way, but it's also a mental way too, emotionally, because if they messed up or they shorted or whatever, and the customer calls them, they complain. I mean, they're taught how to handle that stuff too, but it's still a very emotional job to go through. But like
absolutely.
one of the things I always tell like brand new service people when they come on board is they go, "Hey, any advice?" And I'm like, "Hey, dude, I'll tell you what, like I've been into accounts that have pain point after pain point after pain point. Their uniforms look like trash. Their mats look like bacon, right? I mean, their pricing's out of control. But if they tell me, yeah, but you know what? We love Chris. We never leave him. There's nothing I can do.
I agree. Yes.
Like
Yep.
nothing. It doesn't matter what my price is. Doesn't matter. And that's probably happened to me maybe 3 times in my whole career where they've said that, oh yeah, we bring him over for barbecues. He's actually the godson to my daughter, or the godson.
I've had that
I've had my
happen.
I'm like, are you
Uh-huh.
kidding me right now? Like,
Oh, you froze.
how
Hang
I
on.
come up? Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy. But
Oh,
can you hear me? Oh, one. Welcome back, folks. In case you were wondering what happened to Nicole and myself last time, a construction company knocked over something in Texas, and apparently everybody lost power until like 2 o'clock in the morning. So if you're wondering where my awesome COVID beard went, it's gone now because my wife made me get rid of it. And I'm also wearing a different shirt. So this is like a couple days after. So, and welcome back to the show. Nicole, it's great to have you back on. That's kind of crazy that it just like cut off. I was like, oh no.
it was, yeah, that was crazy. And I'm so thankful you had me back on. But yeah, that was a hot mess. And it definitely took a little while to figure out what was going on. I was like, I know I paid my bills, so we're all good. So it was crazy.
For sure. So we were talking about the impact that your social media presence with LinkedIn has with your career, because we kind of covered too, like how that's impacted your sales and how that's led to closes from people having seen you on LinkedIn. But have you been in contact with any of like the executive team, like president of sales or like sales training? Have you talked to any of those guys at all?
Absolutely. Well, I'll say a few of my posts have gone viral in the sense of like the LinkedIn viral, not, my kids would say it's not gone viral, but for us in LinkedIn,
Yeah,
it has.
that counts.
Exactly 20,000 views, things like that have to me is a big deal. I'm very thankful for. So absolutely, and they ended up reaching out our corporate office. So a gentleman from our corporate office reached out and wanted to find out more about one of the companies I had been working with, and then they ended up doing a post, which was really, it felt to me it was really cool to see, just from a small town. I mean, Corpus is really small in the universe world, so I was really thankful for it. So it's helped in a lot of ways. I feel like it also just it allows you to show your personality. It's easier kind of to get lost in today. So for me, social media has allowed me that avenue to show who I am, what I represent, and what I stand for. And it also gives you that accountability. I mean, if I'm putting out something that I am not, excuse me, sorry, then it doesn't represent you well. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
No, that's all right. You're good.
So yeah, so I feel like LinkedIn, social media, any of those platforms are really helpful as long as you represent them well. And I try really hard to show who I am and what I represent, and to represent Universe well. I never ever want them to think that I'm not representing them. So that's kind of, I try to carry it throughout my whole life, from my kids to my.
Yeah, like I think that's that's a very important thing that you said, is like representing the company well. Like, and I know that there is an initiative by the company to kind of curtail some of the stuff on LinkedIn that they've seen, and they want to try to make things a little bit smoother and a little bit more detailed, and which makes sense. I mean, for a Fortune 400 company, obviously the
Yes.
image has to be out there, right? So doing a thing like post on LinkedIn, to me, it makes me nervous about who's actually looking at it. But
Yes.
when I think back to the purpose behind it, like in your case, like, I mean, every single time I've seen a post that you've done, the one thing that stands out is you have a passion for what you do. And I feel like as long as you carry that with you, there's not a person within this company that would object to what you're posting, right? And that being said, if there's anybody listening from corporate or from sales training that wants to give either of us feedback on what we're posting, please feel free to reach out. If you want to jump
Yes.
on the show, let me know. I'm happy to have you guys. But yeah, it's just an awesome thing to be able to see somebody else that has that same passion for what they do and is able to also broadcast that too. Do you feel like it kind of, because to me, maybe this is just the imposter syndrome in me, because I suffer terribly from that. Like with your post, does it ever make you feel like, oh man, now I have to hit President's Club, because if I don't, everybody's like, oh, this girl was posting all this stuff on LinkedIn and their sales average was super low.
Yes. No, there have been times, especially the start of my career was right in the beginning of COVID, like we discussed earlier, or actually a few days ago. And it really, it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure. And then a couple of the accounts I was really working, I was told I couldn't get. So I just was like, oh, well, just give me the time. And they ended up coming through. Thank goodness. Oh, fingers crossed, and everything else in the Lord, everybody. But it was huge. It was a huge undertaking from UniFirst Corporation. Everybody from that I'm so thankful for just pricing, because we gave really low pricing to everything. And so it was not me, it was everybody else, but I'm so thankful for it. So from that to moving forward, I have just really tried to continue to show up every day. Even there are days, I'm telling you, when I'm not feeling it, or I have kiddos at home and and they're sick or things. And it's like, as long as I show up, even if I can't go into the office, if I make those calls, if I, make those emails, I'm showing up and I'm showing UniFirst that I really do care and love my job. So I tried really hard to do that. I still do every day, even on my hard days. Like, it's just that kind of, I always say, like, there's a 3, 2, 1, do it. And then I do it, and just through. I really do try to bring 100%, but on days I can't, I bring everything I can. So,
Yeah.
Like
I think, yeah. And I think for people too, like, that's important to understand, because like in sales, you do have to have a certain level of mental endurance, and that much like your physical endurance, like your lung capacity, like your muscle endurance, is still a muscle you have to work out. Because if you're not used to getting up at like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and getting emails ready by 7, being in your field by 7:30, and then prospecting or hitting all your CNAs, and the night before, like, you're pre-planning, which is what you had said last time about like the bags of candy, right? The pre-plan, like there's so much that goes into that. And on top of that, you're still making time with your busy schedule, having kids, having to raise them, to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to post on LinkedIn. I mean, people don't understand the level of dedication that takes. And that to me is very impressive. So hats off to you. If I was wearing a hat, I'd take it off. I don't have a hat hanging over there right now.
No.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about you, because I see your little girl come on, and I love those posts. For me, the more real you can be, the better. And so a couple of my posts, I try to bring my daughter in, just because we're living a real life. And so there have been times I thought I had a babysitter that was going to help me whenever I was going to network, and that didn't happen. So she came with me, and we make the kind of just network and work the best we can and show them, hey, we're real. Like, and I also think that's an authenticity that we all need. And so for me, when I see somebody else like that, more power to you, because I just know that you're really trying. And some people could see that's, not quite so business savvy, but at the same time, we're all trying to do our best. So I really, really, really appreciated that. I've seen that on yours. I've seen that on a few other people. And I'm thankful for it, because it's just bringing more reality into the world that we all need.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That means a lot. What's funny is it makes me think about this video I saw on, I don't know if it was on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere, but there's this guy. He's like a news correspondent in England somewhere, or this is what his accent kind of sounds that way. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like his daughter comes like walking in just like this. just walking in, and then like his wife just comes bombing in the room, is trying to like cover her face, grabs
Yeah.
grabs her kid and like drags her out, and I was like, why don't you just turn around and pick that beautiful baby girl up and just set her on your lap and just
Yeah.
continue what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows we have kids. Like, I mean, that's just part of life. I mean, how great would that have been for that guy? If he's like, you know what? Here you go, sweetie. This is my daughter, by the way. Sorry, everybody.
No, I agree.
You know?
And but I do think that was kind of, I remember that video exactly. And it
Mhm.
was kind of the beginning of COVID. And I feel like so many
Yeah.
people kind of had a nose up in a way to that at the time. I feel like a lot of people are more understanding now. And that's one good thing that came out of COVID is I feel like more people are understanding. They're realizing like, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We also have real lives like
Yeah.
that we can't just cover up in the office. So I am very appreciative of that. Even Universe, like I'm so thankful for my 811 because a couple of days I've had to bring my kids to the office and been like, I'll go to my GM and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Brought them, their little iPads and stuff. I will be making my calls. I will, but it was a tough time. And so I'm very thankful that he was very lenient and Universe was very understanding during that time. So those are things that I will never, ever, ever forget and very grateful for. But just like that video, like, our eyes are open now. Before we weren't, I think, quite as much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. And I think what that's done too in that point, and something I thought about since last time we talked, is that when you're an outside sales rep, you almost are overcome with this sense of loneliness, right? Because you're out there by yourself. Like 100% of it is going to be on you. Like you could choose. By the way, I'm not advocating for this. So if anybody's listening, don't go to your GM and be like, well, Philip said, the podcast guy said this. Don't do that. Okay. But like, I mean, you could go to Starbucks at like 9 o'clock in the morning and start your day at 10 or whatever. And if you can be successful that way, more power to you. But like knowing myself, like one of the illusions you get is that you're all by yourself. And really what you just hit on with the family environment part of it, with the understanding, is that you're not alone. You have an amazing GM, you have an amazing sales manager, amazing team that's backing you, that's there to support you. I think that's one thing that COVID kind of taught me a little bit more, is that we're kind of all in this together, right? We're all suffering the same way. We're all coming up with different ideas. Like I got a call from somebody, he's not with the company anymore, but he was from, I want to say it was Oklahoma. And he sent me a message on LinkedIn. He was like, hey man, can you give me a quick call? I have a quick question for you. I was like, yeah, totally. So I called him and we just chatted for like maybe an hour about like how to sell virtually, which neither of us were experts on. We just wanted to pick each other's brains. But that's
Right.
the kind of connection that like I'm looking for with LinkedIn. The whole reason I do the podcast, the whole reason that I post so often, because I want to get to know people like you, like Allison Abbott, like Joey Hall, like Bill Weiss, like everybody that I've talked to has been so valuable in that sense. So yeah.
No, that's great.
Absolutely. So that being said, Nicole, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. You have been awesome. I appreciate your patience and like having to like reschedule with me and all this other stuff, all the craziness that happened.
So terrible. I could not believe that happened. So thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. It was my pleasure. Keep on posting because honestly, I love waking up in the morning and seeing like the post from you, whether it's like a TikTok video or like a boomerang video of you in like the high visibility vest, right? Or the shirts. I think that's awesome. And for those of you that are listening, if you have enjoyed this content, please click that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to connect with Nicole on LinkedIn. Nicole, what's your LinkedIn profile?
Nicole Pennington, yes.
What is it again? Sorry.
Pennington, sorry. Nicole Pennington.
Nicole Pennington. All right. That's all, folks. Thanks very much. And everybody, happy selling out there. We'll see you guys later.
Absolutely. Thank you.